for checking out this episode of Alive in Streaming. And today, joining me, one and only Carlos Cruz from Warbringer. Hello, Carlos. How you doing?
What's going on, Ted? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. How's things?
Likewise. Excellent. Just here, like I was saying earlier, luckily through all the months that everybody's been quarantined and going through the madness around the world, I haven't stopped, but I've been, taking the right precautions, staying safe, keeping healthy, keeping clean for everybody around me, etc. But yeah, the work never ends. So music,
Good.
why we're all here.
Yeah, right on, man. I mean, before we get into Warbringer and your other musical projects, because you have quite a resume.
Thanks.
I want to talk about Carlos Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've read and seen some of your interviews, and you come from a family of musicians. I mean, your grandfather, your dad, your sisters are musicians, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you were surrounded by music as far as you remember.
Pretty much. I didn't gravitate it towards, picking anything up until I was well into, getting closer to like age 9, 10. But just literally born into it. Luckily, there was always music either playing in the household, musicians coming in from my dad's groups. My grandfather passed when he was really young. I don't believe that my mother even got to meet him. But I do own his record. It's on my wall. That's how I know him. He's immortal through the music he created back in the 50s and 60s. And it just continued from there. So my sister played probably the biggest role because we were, most immediate, always with each other, always hanging out, always trading music as we aged and, the decades changed and new music came in and out and etc. So, yeah, it's been I've just been fortunate that it's just always been a part of my life. My house always looked like this, just instruments everywhere, and if you wanted to pick it up, you had the option, so it was funny because my mom, when I was growing up, my mother was yelling at my father, why don't you teach him anything? You know what I mean? He just sits there bored on his Game Boy or whatever. And, my dad said, give it time. If he wants it, he will pick it up and go into it. Where now my mother's like, this is all you do, God damn it. Like, so
yeah,
no complaints there, but yeah.
What did your dad play?
Electric bass.
Oh, okay. Electric bass.
So, he plays guitar and he sings as well, but electric bass has always been his instrument through pretty much his entire career of learning and playing. He's born in Guadalajara, and he came over with his older brother, give or take around his age of being around 16 or so, and just started, playing in clubs with any group that would have him, all Latin music. And from there, it's pretty much been the same thing. He continues to play, come from a religious family. I don't practice myself, but them are always involved with their church, always involved with their choir, their groups, and their worship music, or my dad's like Latin music. From just the various bands he's been in.
Okay, now that's kind of segues me into this next question. You said you and your sister were close and she introduced you to music. So was she responsible to introduce you into heavy music, or was it friends around the neighborhood? Or
yeah, it was direct, still family. So my sister's 4 years older than me, name's Carla. And then my cousin is also, give or take, around the same age. His name is Jose. And both of them were into, once it came of age, they were into skateboarding, and they got into, my sister was more so into like the rock music on the radio, and then found heavier stuff. So while listening to popular bands like No Doubt, maybe Blink-182 and things of that sort, that turned into the System of a Down and the Slipknot type music for her, while my cousin over here was very much into punk. So when he starts, listening to Ramones and Misfits and introducing me to that, then he goes a little deeper and starts showing me bands like Discharge. And that's so both of them had played a role where I'd get punk from over here and I'd get the newer metal from over here. And then from System of a Down, she bought Master of Puppets.
Oh, I heard that story in an interview, and I'd like you to talk about that because it's a really cool story.
It is. Yeah. It's one of my, that's like the moment, you know what I mean? It's like still my favorite record of all time.
Same here. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'd love to hear your story on this one.
Sure. It was a family vacation over the summer. I was likely, 11, 12, something of the sort. And I believe we're in Laughlin, Nevada. We have family all over, this corner of the country. So between Nevada and Texas that summer we would travel, and we just ended up at this like outlet mall. And it was just this music store. It wasn't anything popular. I mean, at the time when we had Tower Records and Sam Goody and stuff like that, this was just like an off-brand, whatever, just kind of like their music store. And, we're scrolling through CDs, and she's over there, and she gets to the M section, and she pulls up 2 CDs. One of them's blue, has a bunch of lightning on it, and one of them is, burgundy red and has a bunch of white crosses on it. I've never seen either of them. And she turns them over, and she starts looking at the track list, and she's like, well, which one should I buy? I don't have a clue. I've never heard of this group. She's like, I really like this song, Fight Fire with Fire. I've heard it before. It's really fast. But she's like, I really like this song on this one. It's called Sanitarium. And, it's a great tune. And I was like, then buy that one. If you like that song better, whatever, you buy that one. So she did. And she didn't even get to play it. I swiped it from her as soon as we got into the car. I was sitting in the back seat, her in the front. My mom's driving back to hotel or whatever. And I had the portable CD player. This little
I remember those.
Yeah, yep. Little red Sony. And, I opened it. I popped it in there. The battery starts. So this is where it gets interesting, because for me, my grandfather was in a classical, acoustic trio.
Okay.
So that kind of sound runs in my family. There's always been acoustic guitar, steel or nylon, whatever, in my household. So the familiarity of something like Battery opening up with acoustics, I was like, oh, cool, this is really nice. It's melodic. Yeah, I like it. And then when it hits and it gets big, I'm like, all right, cool, this is going somewhere. So that felt good, but it didn't click until the main riff came in, and then the beat came in, and then the fucking band was just, all guns blazing. I had never heard anything that extreme. As much as we were listening to Ramones or Misfits or whatever. Yeah. By no means does that sound the way Metallica in '86 sounded. As far as the extremity of it. So it gets up to the little in-between verse solo that Kirk does, the little shredder. And
that one little piece before the second verse.
Exactly. And even then, just like the first impression, I was in the backseat just like this with my headphones on, listening to it, and out loud I go, oh shit. And my mother turns around and like hits me and tells me to like not swear, and you know what I mean? Just because that was the reaction. And wow, man. And I remember that song finishing and the big solo hit and the double bass at the end hit, and that was life-changing for sure.
No, were you playing drums at the time? Or was that the album that made you want to play drums?
No, I was already playing drums. My sister and I were already jamming in the garage. Like I said, we could jam, Blink-182 together, or some of the simpler System of a Down songs together. And the cool thing is we would rotate. She was a drummer, but we had guitars around. So she learned how to play, and I did the same thing. I remember, learning something like Blitzkrieg Bop on drums, but at the same time I was trying to learn Seven Nation Army on guitar. Okay. Starting out really young. And so we would rotate, some songs she would play drums, sometimes I'd play drums, and then sometimes she'd play guitar and I'd play guitar. So we were always able to just kind of go back and forth, have fun. And that listening to that Metallica record and then going deeper into their discography and buying the other ones within that same summer was what wanted to make me take it more seriously, just so I could be able to play that material, because it was way beyond my capability at that point.
Gotcha. It's an incredible album. I mean, I remember, I've been a fan since Kill 'Em All, but I didn't see them until that record. It was Metallica and Ozzy in '86 at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and I got to see Cliff. So I mean, that album means a lot to me because I got to see him on that tour. Now, if I would have saw him on Ride the Lightning, it'd be a different story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So nothing against those, but yeah, please tell me your story.
Dude, I mean, they blew Ozzy away. I remember, I saw Ozzy, but after Metallica got done, pretty much half the place left. They came and saw Metallica. I mean, Metallica in '86 were insane, and I was fortunate enough to see that, which, that's one of my favorite concerts of all time, them, because it was like Master of Puppets, and they did open up with Battery, and I was like, holy shit.
No, I love that. They were given the platform and the stage, and we luckily, so many people were taking videos and pictures and all the bootlegs we have of those tours and the recordings and whatever. Special shit to see, these younger guys, so goddamn young. By that time, Cliff was the oldest. He was what, like 23, 24 when he that. But the rest, I couldn't even imagine, at 20, I was just getting into this. I might have had a record out, but to have Kill 'Em All, Lightning, and Puppets under my belt by the time I'm 22,
just amazing.
Just the content of those records, and what they did for the rest of heavy metal, and where they were able to take that band, and so many other doors open for all the other bands, within that scene or what have you, just because they were able to break through something new. Go ahead.
You mentioned, sorry about that. You
No, no,
mentioned you went back and got their discography. Were they the band that opened the door for you for thrash? Like, I want to, like Metallica, who else is in that realm I got to get?
Exactly. Fully, absolutely. You know, because listening to System of a Down and that sort of music, you know, the peer bands around would have been the Slipknots and stuff like that. You know, there was some of the other scene or whatever, you know, so my sister would listen to stuff like that, but that didn't hit me as much. So as soon as I got Puppets, then I got Lightning second, and then, you know, school started again. So by then I was already fucking, you know, obsessed. And then, you know, seeing my friends again, being able to CD trade and do all that stuff. Some of them were into punk, like Exploited and Casualties. And, you know, a friend of mine gifted me Kill 'Em All, and another friend gifted me the Black Album, stuff like that. It was great. And yeah, from that, in that same summer, it was just like deep dive. You know, when you're opening the booklet, the CD booklet to Kill 'Em All or Ride the Lightning, and you see this guy's name under the song title, it says Mustaine, D. Mustaine, and I'm like, the hell's that? You know, so I got to do my research, and then through that I found Megadeth, and through that I found Slayer, and then it just went into that.
It started trickling down. So you're like me. I like to look at the credits and the thanks list, going, what's that? What's that?
Yeah, you know? Who's this? Who are these people? You know, everything down to like seeing, you know, Harold O's credit on Cliff's picture. Brother Lightning, going, who's that guy and what's he about? And but you know, they were there, a part of the scene, building this stuff. Just pure innocence, right place, right time, and just quality content that made shit move. So yeah, it was very much like that. This right here, spark for everything that would follow. This is just the download card from like the deluxe box set.
So would you say they're the band that set you on this path to where you are now?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Same here. I would agree with you on that. Now, you play other instruments too. As you mentioned, you play guitar and bass. Why the drums, dude? You know why I think you play the drums? Because you're a tall dude.
Right? 6'4".
6'4".
You know, in most cases, usually in any band, luckily when I joined Warbringer, you know, there was initially that lineup, I think everybody was tall except for one guy. You know, shorter than the rest anyway, but everybody was about 6 feet. So it felt good to be in a band full of some, you know, 6 foot motherfuckers. Yeah, I guess so. The drums were there and I took it seriously. Maybe I liked the fact that it was something I could just, you know, put on headphones, I could listen to, and it was kind of easier to match rather than learning notes and rather than learning chords, etc. At the initial start, it was easier to just kind of bash away and figure it out. I mean, each instrument I play just kind of, it has its own purpose. You know what I mean? I can't necessarily compose on the drums, and I don't really like to do that. It's not like if I come up with a cool pattern or a cool beat or a cool rhythm, that's one thing. But usually, you know, a more musically inclined instrument, you know, like a guitar is where I'll compose or get like a certain feeling out. If I want to rage, this is the riff. If I want to feel something different, you know, then I'll go this way with like an acoustic or something. But yeah, I mean, I've always kind of balanced the practice between both of them. You know, I'm not like a crazy shredder or anything, but I love composing. I love writing riffs, and I'm a far better rhythm player than like soloist or anything like that.
I am there with you. I'm on the same boat as well. Now, you said, I mean, you learn things by ear. I remember hearing an interview where you could hear drums. You could hear, oh, that's a ride. Oh, that's what he's hitting. Like, so you could figure shit out like that quick.
Yeah, that was the practice. And anybody that asked me when they're starting out, what should I do? And it's like, you know, the best thing to do is just, you know, become familiar with what sound, you know, or what piece of the drum kit, it, you know, creates what sound, and then just identify it. It's kind of just like that game, Simon, you know what I mean? Red flash, hit the red one, you know, blue flash, hit the blue one, kind of the same idea. You hear the kick drum, cool, hit the kick drum. You hear that this is a snare, you can distinguish the two, hit the snare. So that's like a way simpler kind of approach for me. It was like I get to train my ear, I get to have fun by playing these simple songs. I started off, you know, like I go back to Ramones and this other band, you know, when it was like 2001, this other popular band from New York called The Strokes that my sister was really into, and they had the same thing. They were, you know, rock band, but it's pretty straightforward, meat potato. So we could jam that stuff. We can get away with playing simple White Stripes band sounding stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, by the time, I mean, my ear was well trained by the time I got to Metallica, but then, you know, you're picking up the speed and you're picking up, oh, he's playing this fast beat, but he's doing this like weird tom thing back and forth in the middle of the battery verse, etc. So now it becomes a little more challenging to use your ear. So I didn't mess with any kind of theory until, I wanted to later in life, probably towards the end of high school into college before all the real touring started. But it was all by ear. It was all garage band. It was all just sitting there and just going, just giving it the shot. You just, no, for me, I'm just the type of learning I do is just by doing it, experiencing it, making mistakes and moving forward. You can't really give me a book and say, if I can read it, learn it, move on.
You just got to do it.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Just got to do it.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. All right, Carlos, I'm going to get into your musical projects here because you have quite a resume. I mean, I'm going to start with the recorded projects. I mean, you recorded with Ex Mortis, Skeletal Remains, right?
Yes, sir.
Necro Sound, which is your band. I'll get to that. Machine Head and Hexen. I mean, Hexen, I don't know much about that band. Was that your main band before Warbringer?
Yes. So pretty much through high school, in 9th grade, I had like a jam band, and I was in marching band for a year, just kind of, just by getting involved with music, and I met some cool people involved in music there and had a little bit of a, different dynamic, but I knew ultimately it's like I wanted to do my own thing because I was very much into rock music, not, I wasn't into reading charts and all that, So, high school would have been my first band. 9th grade, I would have been 14, 15 years old, starting to play backyards. We didn't have a band name, so we ended up calling it War Ensemble because we were covering a bunch of Slayer. And then I joined a slightly more established band with a demo out that had been already playing more shows and already had a MySpace and already had music on MySpace at the time. So this would have been like 05, 06. That band, a little bit more of a crossover because some of them were, very much more into punk and more into like psychobilly and rockabilly, stuff like that. While the other half of the band was into thrash and extreme music. So that was more of like a crossover band. It was called In Misery. It's kind of like a Misfits thing. And from there, the next year was my introduction to the band Hexen. So at this point, 06 is where I kind of came across all of the LA bands that had started. So Warbringer was in Ventura. Fueled by Fire was in Norwalk. Merciless Death was up north in the Canyon Country area. And they would all travel, congregate in LA, play shows, whether together or they had their own shows with other locals, whether they were backyards or in small clubs or that scene grew to play at the Whiskey and stuff like that. I would go see all these bands. And, Ex Mortis was still a part of it. Hexen was a part of it. They were coming from like a different musical background and cultural background. They were Armenian, Middle Eastern. And their music was more along the lines of like Megadeth and Coroner and Death, and it was a little more melodic. It was a little more technical. They were actually really, really good players. So one thing led to another where their drummer quit and they had a bunch of shows coming up and they didn't want to cancel them. So they knew I could play. So they asked me if I would just fill in, handle these shows. And then from there, it was just like, well, do you want to join the band? Because we're glad to have you. So we did a demo, give or take. I was about 17 and I'll never forget this. Towards the spring, independent label from SF signed the band. And then I had to leave school for like 2 weeks, almost a month to go record it. So try to convince your mother at 17 to get school, for such a long time to go record a record. And I'll never forget it. And this was like my argument. I was like, Mom, I guarantee this. If I ask you 10 years from now, what did you do, the first 3 weeks of April in the year 2008? You're probably not going to remember. You're working your job, your career, whatever. Me, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. And,
good one.
And damn sure I do. You know what I mean? Because that record was the start of all of this. So yeah, it was Hexen. Core component was thrash. So we did a first record that came out in 08. We did some shows, did some touring, just, US based. I don't think there was any Canada involved or anything. That's still really DIY, very independent. Then we did a second record, and through that second record is when Warbringer approached me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So late 2010 is when I started talking to both Johns from Warbringer.
Gotcha. All right, man. I mean, before we get into Warbringer, Necro Sound, the shirt you're wearing, I was listening to it the other day.
Cool.
Kind of black metal-ish.
Yeah, it was.
You wrote, recorded, produced. You played all the instruments?
I sang too.
You sang. Yeah. Wow. I was listening to it going, who's singing? And now I know you sang.
Yeah.
It has Norwegian black metal feel. I mean, is that something you love, black metal, or is that something that just, I think I'm going to write a black metal song today? Yeah. Or
no, I've always had an affinity for it. I get something different out of the various types of metal. You know, prog stuff will do this. You know, death metal will do that. You know, if it's bands like, you know, the various bands I worked with, you know, Skeletal Remains was death metal and is death metal. So yeah, that requires something. You know, Warbringer, etc. is thrash. That requires something, and it gets out a different mood. So this was pretty much like a combination of influences that I have of like the early first wave stuff, more so in particular, whether it be Venom or Hellhammer or Motorhead or, you know, Bathory and stuff like that. So it was pretty much like, okay, all the groups I play in are quite demanding, whether it's like technically or physically or mentally, you know. There's a lot of double bassing here. There's a lot of blast beating here. If I'm playing with Chris Poland of Megadeth, whether it's his solo stuff or whether it's the jazz band we play in, that has, you know, odd time and a lot of crazy chops and all this stuff. So I just kind of wanted to get away from it. And what really triggered it was the very last Warbringer tour we did, it started in late summer and then it went into fall. It was 58 shows in 60 days through Mexico, US, Canada.
I'm going to talk about that soon. Yeah.
But yeah, to get to this project, it was pretty much like, wow, I am on the road every goddamn day. I've got a show every goddamn day. It's so demanding. I'm like exhausted by the end of it. I just wanted like the complete opposite of it. I didn't want the touring environment. I wanted like isolation and just like a creative environment. So this came about. I kept it super short songs, like punk format, because that's what I wanted. I didn't want the crazy technically demanding double bass, whatever. I just wanted primitive choo-choo-cha. And ultimately I wanted to sit in the producer's chair. So that's pretty much why I decided to just do it all by myself. I was like, can I tackle all these tasks and kind of school myself in the various facets of the music industry? It's like, cool, I can, if I create the band, now I have to write the stuff. Now I have to record the stuff. So that's a completely different hat I have to put on. So where I'm in the room, here's my drum set, here are all the mics, here's the board, here's the desk. You know what I mean? This is how all of this works. Record it. Okay, post-production stuff. Now I have to mix it. I've got to master it. I've got to do all these things. So I've got to put on a different hat, you know, and learn that stuff. Now I've got to go and create artwork for it. I've got to create a logo. I got to create an idea, an image, a vibe. That's a different task. Then I have to find a way to like put it out to the world on the networks, get it up on all the streaming services, manufacture stuff, create, you know what I mean? So that's like the label end of it. So I really just wanted to kind of get a taste for everything. So I said, fuck it, like do it myself.
Wow.
Just it's an education. You know, like I said, I'm not the learner who's going to sit in a classroom and open books and figure it out. I'm just going to do it. I will learn along the way. So it's pretty much just able to, you know, make it happen from nothing.
That's very inspiring, man. You know, it probably inspire a lot of, you know, up and coming musicians to do that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Because it's not impossible. And before, you know, when you're 15 and impressionable, you think, oh, I'm not going to get anywhere without the label and this crazy team and these crazy investments. And it's like, I did it all literally in the chair I'm sitting in right now.
That's awesome, dude.
You know what I mean? From nothing to me, you know, and it's just a practice. So hopefully one day, you know, music comes and goes, bands come and go, etc. So I'm always going to be involved in it one way or another. But, you know, I see a lot of cool players who are like, cool, I was in a band from here, but now I manage bands, or now I was in a band at this point in time, but now I'm a record label A&R or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So music has so much to offer. So I'm interested in everything it has to offer.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned Chris Poland's band. It's a jazz band. Oh, am I correct?
Yeah. So there's Chris Poland, which is solo, which is just Chris Poland. So that's more of his guitar shred.
Okay.
That leans a little closer to Megadeth.
Okay. But I want to talk about the jazz thing.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? I mean, I know Nick Menza was playing, who was also a Megadeth alumni, but unfortunately he passed away. Then you stepped in. I mean, how did that come about?
Through mutual friends. So while all that was happening, I had a mutual friend who was closely working with the band because they were trying to work out some sort of like documentary, like making of a record with Nick and Chris, and obviously the bass player's name's Pag. And I mean, that band, Chris and Pag go back, from the band, the original band was called the New Yorkers with Gar Samuelson, the original Megadeth.
Yeah.
You know, so they were having at it since like, I don't know, 77 or something like that. And fast forward till now, I was hanging out with just, my mutual friends who were hanging out with Ohm, which is the jazz fusion band from LA. So yeah, when I first met them, it was Nick on drums, Chris, and Pag. So I would go to their shows as a fan. I was like, dude, two guys from the Megadeth catalog playing together. Totally. It's got to be interesting. So it is really interesting music. It's all instrumental. Chris Boland is really unique in the way he plays his sound. He plays one band, you already know it's him. He's got this really exotic and like identifiable sound when it comes to playing. I mean, you can distinguish him from any other Megadeth guitarist, definitely, on those records. And listening to Nick play the stuff, I saw that they started to gravitate more towards like a rock based band, kind of like a Cream, kind of like a Hendrix, that power trio sound, because Nick is much more rock solid. He's not the crazy fusion drummer. And just hanging out with mutual friends, watching them at the show, it was cool to see their music get a little heavier, get a little darker. And then unfortunately with Nick's passing, they knew of me because I was hanging out. And then it wasn't until one of my mutual friends who was like a little closer with them because they were filming this making of documentary thing for the music they were writing with Chris and Nick. They put my name in the hat, so to speak. So one day my friend reached out and he was like, hey, do you want to come out for a jam? These guys are asking. And, in mourning, it's a little difficult time period. You know what I mean? These are older guys too. They're twice my age. So it's a little different dynamic. It's not like the, Metallica Cliff situation where it's like, we got to get back on the road. We got to get back out there. So we need someone fast. It was really just like super lax, super, you do you, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I got in the room and they were open and interested to like anything and everything that I was about. And I came prepared though. Here's the difference. This is really funny because I knew I was going to jam with them. I figured, blues jams, maybe they'll throw like a lick or a riff or a chord progression or something cool. And we'll just kind of see what happens. Wasn't the case. Before we even started jamming, Chris was like, by chance, do you happen to know any of the songs? And I'm like, yeah, I know one. Let's try one. And we played it. And, I did my thing with it, but I kept like the core of it. It's fusion. Yeah. It's really difficult. It's really different. You really have to pay attention. At first, anyway. Now it's second nature. Now I can feel it. It's got a hell of a flow to it. So I played that one song, No Mistakes. I was like, all right, that felt really good. Then I played 8 more songs. I was already ready. I already had like a set good to go. So I played 8 more, No Mistakes. They were like, who the fuck is this kid?
Wow, dude. You did your homework.
Oh yeah.
You did your homework.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, because I walked in that room and I'm like, it's Chris Boland. You know who the fuck Chris Boland is? And you know what that
I do.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure all the viewers who are watching.
Yeah. In my mind though, I'm just like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? This is crazy. Because then, once they gave me a little tour of the studio, I go into the control room and there's the gold, platinum, and a third award for P. Seltzwood Who's Buying on the wall. And I'm sitting here just freaking the hell out. But it's funny because they're such humble guys. They're so grateful to have me. They're so grateful to just continue to play and learn something from me, learn something from the younger generation that is happening now. It's a very different time than his prime time in Megadeth or anything like that. So, but
you probably came in with a different perspective on how to approach the songs.
Yeah. There were moments where, I always was a fan of progressive rock music, then some progressive metal music, but I always enjoyed more of the prog rock era, you know what I mean? Of the late 60s into the 70s, like super prime. And then I also enjoy, whether it's the more traditional jazz or the fusion stuff where you start bringing in synthesizers, electric guitars, and badass drumming. So, I always had chops like that just because I was always interested in it. There was a time in Warbringer where it was, about, okay, I can do the thrash beat. What else is there to offer on the drums? So you start looking into different stuff so you could funnel it, so I can listen to Gene Hoglan and drummers like that. But at the same time, then I got hooked on drummers like Billy Cobham and Tony Williams and Lenny White. And you see how somebody like Gar Samuelson of those early Megadeth records is like the bridge between.
Yeah.
He's playing in a speed metal band, but if you really listen to the chops and the dynamic and his fills, way different than Lars, way different than Dave Lombardo, way different than any of the guys from the same era. And that was really inspiring. So every time I sit in that chair, I feel that type of energy. I feel like, okay, cool. I'm going to bridge the gap between, I still hit hard. That's just me doing me. But then, yeah, these techniques are going to be different. I don't need to blast beat. I need to kind of flow.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Depending on the group or whatever. So yeah, it was really cool to exercise that end of my drumming. So I'm not just, a one-trick pony.
That's awesome, dude. Now, before I continue, I want to answer a couple of fan questions because I don't want to keep them waiting.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see.
I'm getting so into this conversation. I'm
me too, man.
Oh, whoa, dude. We got fans watching and want to ask questions. But before I get to a video interview that was sent to us, there's some questions here from Jesus. Carlos, what's your favorite Warbringer song to play live from records you didn't play on?
Ooh, good question. Damn. When I first joined, obviously the first record stuff is very straightforward, very just beat oriented. And then that second record, holy shit, Nick Ritter, rest in peace. That guy, complete monster. If it wasn't for me having to learn that material, my game would have not done that substantial bump without learning his techniques. And I mean, he was very much a progressive and a fusion type drummer in a metal context. And that guy's a fucking monster. So I did learn a lot from that record. So really anything off of their second album is a hell of a challenge. Still is, whether it's the fast stuff. He was doing like gravity blasts and all this type of shit that Warbringer had like no idea about. And you wouldn't even like fathom what happened on their first record. So yeah, anything off of their second album, Waking into Nightmares, is a hell of a challenge. Favorite one would be the instrumental. And if you listen to that instrumental, Nightmare Anatomy, the groove, the pocket, the crazy ghost notes, the fills, the drumming on there is gnarly. So that would be my top answer for sure.
All right. We'll do one more and we'll do the video one. This one's from Pat Thompson. For Carlos, besides thrash and punk, what genre of music influences your playing? Any instrument the most?
Ooh, I mean, going back to it, it would be like the for like songwriting, I gravitate towards groups that have like a fucking great discog, that have a lot of different emotion or just a lot of different color or just a lot of, growth and expansion. So I'm really into like the Beatles, and I like hearing the bubblegum stuff because it's fun. But then you hear when they became like the album Beatles.
Yeah.
That's really when rock music was introduced to the album. It wasn't so much about the single and like the hit. It's like, who cares? Let's put all our energy into this collection of songs that's like its own, collective art piece. We'll present that into the world at, with a very different angle. And then you do that, you stop touring and you just start putting out records. That's another reason I like the solo stuff. So it's like, I don't have to worry about shows. I can just create and just get it out there. So stuff like that influences more of the songwriting and more of like getting into different vibes and getting into, cool works from start to finish and seeing a slightly bigger picture with music. But then we were talking jazz, fusion stuff. So Mahavishnu Orchestra or Billy Cobham's solo stuff is unreal. Return to Forever. All kinds of cool stuff. But
wow.
So it really just depends. If I want to write good songs, then I gravitate towards stuff like that. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys is another one.
That's funny because someone asked, does Carlos like the Beach Boys? That came from Darren Diggle from the UK. So you just answered his question.
Oh, there you go, Darren. Big time. Yeah, again, it's one of those groups. You see, the bubblegum kind of uppity pop stuff, but then when you dive into like art and like composition and really breaking music down, these guys are stellar composers. So some of my favorite just artists, composers, definitely.
All right.
Yeah, big time.
That's awesome. All right. We have a video question from Claire from Liverpool. Liverpool. As you were talking the Beatles, I'm gonna share my screen with you and let's check this out, Carlos. Can you see this?
Sure can.
Can you see? Okay, here we go. Check it out. This is from Claire from Liverpool.
Ted, Carlos, hello from Liverpool. Hope you're both okay and keeping healthy. Ted, I was lucky enough to see you at Death Angel back in March in Manchester for the Bass Strikes Back. You put on an awesome show. It was one of the best shows I've ever been to. And Carlos, love the new album, Weapons of Tomorrow. And fingers crossed I'll get to see you and Warbringer in December for Thrash Alliance. Fingers crossed. Okay, my question is to both of you, what's the worst or the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you when you've been on stage? Okay, so there's my question. Hope to see you guys soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay metal. Bye.
That was
Carlos.
Awesome. That's fucking awesome.
Hold on. I gotta stop that video real quick. Look at that. There we go. All right. What is the worst or embarrassing thing happened to you on stage, bro? I can tell you a couple, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, sure. In most cases, it's usually something like technical happening.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's not one of those where it's like, oh, people are throwing shit at the stage, nothing like that. It's usually like, fuck, I just broke this bass drum head. Or, you know what I mean? It's like, I've got no more sticks around because they're all busted. Probably like the most embarrassing one. And here's the weird part, because I didn't even know it happened, is last summer I was on the road with Power Trip. And we're playing in a smaller club. We're doing, it's a festival run, but we're doing club shows in between. And we have one club show, and the stage is in a corner, kind of, I mean, like
a kiddie corner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm literally in the corner, and the bass rig's right next to me, and it's super tall because I'm sitting there in this tiny little quarter, and I can't see, this side of the stage, so I can't see the two players on this side of the stage. During one of the songs, I feel my bass drum pedal start to like come apart, and I'm like, oh shit. And this band doesn't use double bass, so I only have one foot. It's not like I can switch over to using my left leg or anything like that. So I'm not freaking out, but I'm like, all right, just make it to the end of the song, jump down, fix it or whatever. I see the problem. In order to fix it, I need tools. And I'm like, fuck, I don't have anything around me like that. So I'm yelling at these guys who I can't see to get their attention or something like that. And one of them, the guitar player, Nick, runs off stage, but I don't see that he runs off stage. And my dumbass starts the next song. So this guy's not even on stage, but everybody else is fucking going for it. The crowd's going for it. But that was probably embarrassing to learn after the fact. He's trying to help me, and there I go fucking up the gig because I didn't see that he had run off stage.
He's trying to help you. Oh man! Yeah, but the crowd was into it though, right?
Oh no, fully. I mean, that was just like a big flub that I didn't even know happened because I couldn't see that side of the stage.
Yeah. Wow.
We got through it, but that was probably like the biggest Homer Simpson Doe moment.
Yeah.
Big time. That I recall for sure.
Yeah. I'll tell you a couple from mine, dude. I forgot where we were at. We were playing a show, dude. We were rocking out, packed house. I sneeze and I have snot on my nose. And I in the middle of a song, I'm like, ugh. Dude, I couldn't wipe. You're in the middle of riffing. It's just fans are probably looking at me. I had all this snot, probably had a lot of boogers or something. I'm like, I had to wait, I had no text. I had to wait till the end of the song to wipe it off. I thought that was embarrassing because, in this day and age, people are filming or taking a photo. And another one was right before we were touring in 2003. Mm-hmm. We were playing in Essen, Germany. We were in the middle of a song. Mark, that dude's a front man. He'll get into it. He hits me right in the head, dude. He was doing his like front man thing, hits me, then he just starts getting into it. Usually when like Damien would hit me with his bass and he'll go, dude, I'm sorry, dude. And I go, no, don't trip. Mark hits me in the head. I look at him and he's still dancing, getting into it.
I didn't even know he did it,
He didn't know he did. But, when you're in the moment, you're in the moment.
Adrenaline, it's like, I hear that.
Adrenaline. But, those are the two. But the worst is with the snot in my nose. Funny. I'm like, oh, dude, that's why I got to have tissue by my area.
I learned the hard way for drums anyway, especially with risers, that they can do this a lot. Some of them are uneven. They're all fucked up. To tape everything down, gaff tape the majority of all your stands down, because another embarrassing thing is that you're playing over here and that cymbal is no longer to be found. It's on the fucking floor, somewhere.
Or it's tilted and you're like, what? It's
like that. It's convenient, but you learn these things.
I'm gonna end off this recorded musical project.
Cool.
You recorded 3 songs with Machine Head.
Yes, sir.
And I just heard the 2 songs that they just released this week. Incredible drumming, by the way, dude.
Thanks,
you killed it. Now, Machine Head, very popular band, very well established band. how did you get that gig? I mean, did management call you? Did Rob Flynn call you? I mean,
after the fact. So from going up to Oakland and hitting Sharkbite Studios with Ex Mortis, we worked with Zach Oren, the producer out there, and that was a great experience. That was the first time I had met Zach, worked with Zach. Warbringer had worked with him prior, so he was like in the know, but I'd never worked with him personally. So it was for the latest Ex Mortis record, The Sound of Steel, that we did early 2018. Literally, like we celebrated New Year's, and then the next day I was driving myself and my gear up to Oakland. So it was that session that led to later in the year, Zach hitting me back up and going, "Hey man, you know, Rob Flynn is looking to just jam. You know, he's sitting on some material. He wants to get it out. A bunch of other people were thrown into, you know, the hat. But ultimately, you know, I mean, you're close, you're local. You know what I mean? You're very much a thrash metal drummer, and he's got some more metal content he's sitting on. And if it's cool with you, I know I'd like to mention you and show him some of your videos and stuff like that and see if he'll bring you up." And that's exactly what happened. So then Rob followed up, and then management followed up. And then I went up there at the very end of 2018, literally right the week before Christmas. And I was there for maybe 4 or 5 days, just jamming. You know, they sent me a couple demos. Here's a couple riff ideas to give me like an idea of the songs. And luckily they're all pretty different. You know, a few of them are extreme, a few of them are fast, a few of them are, you know, more along the lines of the Machine Head sound. Yeah. And then that was it. You know, we got into that room, and I mean, I was already thrilled just because of the fact that I respect Rob, and, you know, everything from like you being there. Kill 'Em All came out. Rob, you know, has the story of seeing Metallica on the Kill 'Em All for One tour, and that being his light bulb moment for wanting to pursue music, especially that type of music. And then, you know, starting Forbidden, going into Violence, doing those records, and then starting, you know, something completely new with the new decade and bringing Machine Head to where it is today. I mean, the utmost respect.
Yeah, so, same here. I respect them fully.
Yeah, definitely. So getting into that room, not so much nervous. You know, I knew the material. I know what I'm about. I get in there and I get shit done, and it feels good that, you know, Rob's standing over here riffing, Jared, the bassist, standing over there fucking rocking out. And the three of us are just grinding it out. You know, I mean, he's got the main riffs and we're jamming them, and then he'll shoot changes at me during the writing of like, oh, well, in this moment, you know, switch over to here and we're going to hit 5 chokes in a row and then go back into the intro. You know what I'm saying? Just like start chopping it up right then and there, and then laying it down, and then going back, listening. Okay, let's go back in there and we'll try it this way. So it was a really cool process of just like write, record in the moment. And I never let it down. It took, you know, I'm glad that he took the time, you know, to get his group back together, go out there on the road, so he could go back and do the Burn My Eyes tour and bring in some old friends again and rekindle some fire under his ass. And I'm glad that writing new music with me or some of the other people he got involved, you know, lit that fire under his ass again for the better, because he's really happy about everything now. And it's cool to hear where the songs ended up, you know, working with different mix engineers and producers, to where we like initially recorded them, because I have to do the thing now where, oh, that's what I played. I don't. Okay. It's been so long, I don't remember. You know? Not specifically anyway. So hearing the songs now, I'm just like, oh, that's fucking badass. I'm glad I did that there. Gotcha. But yeah, one of the greatest studio experiences of my life, hands down. And I'm glad to see that the band is happy with everything. The fans more so than anybody. You know, everybody has their, you know, the fan base that it's like, well, it's not this, so fuck
you that. You get those people. So
totally. Yeah. Doesn't matter what you do. Even if you do it right. You know, there were haters for Ride the Lightning because there was a ballad on there or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah. So, but out of all the projects, I mean, you also filled in, like you said, for Power Trip and, you know, other bands. Out of all, each band is different. Mm-hmm. But out of all the projects recorded and live, about approaching the songs, learning them to play live and learning to record them, which band was the most challenging?
Ooh. Like you said, they're all very different. They all put in a different hat. You know, Ex Mortis is different from Skeletal Remains, and the fact that Skeletal Remains is more death metal, brooding. So double bass is faster than anything. Blast beats faster than anything. You flip the script over here and you're with Chris Poland and we're doing the jazz thing. And it's like, okay, now you got to play in 7/8. Now you got to play some swing shit. Now, you know what I mean? And you got to do a bunch of ghost notes and all this other tricky stuff. Then you change it again and you go to a band like Power Trip where it's like, okay, no double bass, basic drum, just fucking kick, snare, rack, floor. You got your hi-hat, your ride, and 2 crash. Nothing else. No China, no splash, no triggers, no nothing. That's like fucking play the beat. And they all have their purpose and they all serve their purpose. And I'm glad I can adapt to each environment, adapt to their group. You know, with Warbringer, I have a lot more control over the music, over the composition, over a lot of the stuff, where in those groups, you know, it's like, cool, I am here, you know, and the backdrop behind me says Power Trip. It doesn't say Carlos Cruz, you know what I mean? So I'm here representing your band, a part of your team, and collectively together, we create the sound. We put the show on, we, you know, make the music happen. So yeah, it's never so much like about me, it's about like the collective.
Gotcha.
So I think that is like the challenge across the board, how to be a chameleon, how to go ahead and just kind of gel with both the people personally and with the goal of the group.
Wow, man. It's a good answer. I wouldn't have thought of that. I'd be all like, okay, I'd think musically, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then again, you brought good points of like personality, the collective, and you know how to go about things. You know, that's awesome, dude. Now I'm gonna get to Warbringer.
Right.
This is what I really want to get into.
Okay.
I mean, I saw you play last year at the Parkside in San Francisco. You got with Enforcer.
Oh God.
You guys killed it. Yeah, you guys killed it. Packed house. Whew. And you mentioned earlier in this conversation, you guys did 54 shows in 54 days. I mean, what the hell, dude? Whose fault was that? Because I'll tell you, dude, with Death Angel, we're not going to do 54 shows in 54 days. You know, we got achy bones, bro. We might have to put Ben Gay after we play.
I use I like Ben Gay, but I like Tiger Bomb better. I mean, I use shit out of that stuff. It smells good too.
Whose fault was that, bro? I mean, 54 shows, 54 days. Come on.
Yeah, he's no longer the booking agent. So
okay.
So just we'll put it like that. But yeah, it was us and Enforcer, and we were like, yeah, well. See, this was the thing. Warbringer's album was supposed to come out way earlier than it did. So we were supposed to have that new record by the time that tour happened. That was the only point for doing that tour. Yeah. And it didn't happen. You know, we wanted to take the time, remix it, remaster it, and really serve it, you know, the justice, you know, and put in the time that it deserved in order for us to feel good about it. And yeah, Mexico, US, Canada. So the Mexico shows added flights and 4 more shows on top of it. So it was 58 in 60 days.
Woo.
Yeah. And that was fucking grueling. I mean, for what it was, I'm happy it happened. It needed to happen. We needed the activity. We needed the spark and the hype to get people, to just really promote the fact that, okay, there's going to be a new record. So here it is, actually out there giving it to you. Anybody now sitting at home would die to fucking play on a tour like that right now, because everybody's been home for 6+ months waiting to get out there. And, you know, people are still releasing records and can't play shows. And who knows when we'll be able to comfortably travel and play shows again and get back, or just the entertainment world as a whole. It doesn't matter what you do, to get out there and continue to work. So that was something at the time. You look back and you're going, why? Now you look back and you go, I can fucking do anything.
Yeah.
If we can handle that, we can. What else you got for us? So you learn these things. You learn how to divide that tour up, future tense, and work with the right people. To achieve your common goals. At that particular point, that particular agent was just like, I'm going to do me. You shut up and just be happy that you've got work at all, type of thing. So kind of a negative way to go about shit. So good riddance, and we move forward with. Obviously, everything that's going on, we'll see where all the bands end up. But yeah, ultimately, I care more about the music, and the record was more important to me than the tours and the shows. Yeah. The records are forever. Records are the reason you and I are here. Records change lives. Records are something people attach themselves to and, immerse themselves in, and they mold their life around shit like that. So I have learned to love that process just as much.
Gotcha.
So looking forward to hitting the stage, future tense, but much happier, knowing that the quality of that Warbringer record that I gave at the time and delayed it as much as it needed to have the record we have now.
Yeah, because once you release it, it's in the books. You can't go back and take it back.
Yeah.
I mean,
only in my mind.
With it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of that all the time where like now I can listen to it and go, shit, shoulda, coulda, woulda, blah, blah, blah. But
that's always the case.
Always,
you know what I mean? You won't know until after it's done,
Mhm.
you know?
Exactly.
But I mean, having to do that many shows, I mean, physical, drumming is, physical workout.
Exactly.
Is there any other routines you do on the road to stay healthy, to stay fit? I mean, I know you probably playing is a part of it, but do you have any other stuff,
Yeah, the show is like the exercise for the day. So like the hour prior, I'll do, stretching and warming up just to get my blood warm, because going out there cold, then you start building up fucking lactic acid and all the muscles. And so usually the hour prior is stretching and warm-ups, whether it's like I got involved with yoga for quite some time to help, all the aches of the nerves and sciatic nerve and back pain and joints and all that type of thing. So I'll, usually do a routine, get the blood warm, and then hit the pad, 10 to 20 minutes if I need that much time. I really don't need that much time, but usually I know that no partying until after. I've learned that the hard way, because it just dehydrates you. And if we're going to play an hour plus, or if I'm doing double duty, which I've done several times, I've done double duty on one tour where I play in 2 sets, 2 different groups. I've done it with Ex Mortis Warbringer. I've done it with Enforcer Warbringer. So there, you really have to just like worry about, okay, you worry about all the fun stuff, the rock and roll show shit after you put on the rock and roll show, so the playing and the people that are there are the priority. It's not a job we can call in sick to.
No.
You got people waiting out there who paid for a ticket, so you better be on it.
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, I totally get it, man. That's do you work out on the road, eat well?
Yeah, exactly. Diet stuff. Luckily, since I was like 15, I think my peak weight, genetically, I come from a family that is really tall, obese. So I grew up like that, like through that as my childhood. So peak weight, I think it was 15 years old. I weighed like 357.
Wow.
They called me Big C. You know what I mean? I was going to those thrash shows and, I'm in denim and leather with the gloves and everything, but I'm a fucking tank, there to get into the pit. Now I hover around like the 220 mark. So it's just been a long fucking road of discipline, to take away all that stress and take away all that excess weight. And drumming was a big part of that, just playing more extreme, faster and faster, so many shows, so many tours, etc. So the diet thing, I know for my body type, me personally, I'd rather drink a beer than eat a piece of bread. So that's kind of how I have it in my mind. Where I already know I'm going to drink, and I'm going to drink a lot because I love fucking beer. So after the show, I'm going to carbo load on that stuff. So during the day, I try to keep it light so I don't feel lethargic on stage and after blast beat and shit like that, feeling so tired and sluggish.
I gotcha. Good man.
So that plus the warm up and then party after, usually how I roll.
All right. That's good to hear. Weapons of Tomorrow, your new album.
Yes, sir.
I've listened to it quite a few times. It's a great record. And I want to give you my standout tracks. Black Hand Reaches Out.
Groover.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Crushed Beneath the Tracks and Defiance of Fate.
Oh.
I mean, they're 3 songs, very different. I love the fast stuff. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, yeah. But we know we're good at the fast stuff.
Yeah, you guys are great at the fast stuff, but these have more. You guys did it where you could slow down and groove, but it makes it still powerful. Where with Black Hand Reaches Out and Crushed Beneath the Tracks, Defiance of Faith has that nice ballady vibe to it. Mm-hmm. So you guys switched it up. Those are standouts to me, which I refer everyone to check out this album, especially those tracks.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Heart of Darkness again has your necro sound vibe to it. Was that you? Was that you?
Yeah, it was a mixture of Adam and I. So Adam's very into melodic death metal, black metal, and extreme metal of that sort. That's very musical. He plays piano like a motherfucker, and he's into classical stuff and everything from like synth stuff to like video game soundtracks and what have you. So yeah, he's very much more inclined to not writing thrash. He's not really too big on thrash. You know what I mean? He knows of it. He's a fan, sure, but that's the style he gravitates more. So it's cool to exercise that end of Warbringer as well, on top of just like the pure like old school thrash style. So yeah, it's kind of a collab between that.
Okay.
We're all fans of extreme metal as a whole, and there's a lot to offer these days. So many different styles, groups within those big 3 of thrash, death, and black metal. So we find ourselves kind of funneling it all and trying to explore a new sound. You know,
Mhm.
Rain and Blood's been done. It's hard
It's done.
yeah,
It's done.
yeah, it's hard to find a good record these days that has the same dynamic front to back. One that does it for me is the latest Power Trip One, Nightmare Logic, where you know it's power of the riff, and that's what they exercise. That's what the band's about. For me, I like variety to like a much greater extent, so I like to explore that stuff. So, you know, Black Hand, I knew it was like, let me write a more direct song with that's musical, that's interesting. Crush Beneath the Tracks, it's like, cool, let me explore the more death metal, the more brutal
Yeah.
stuff. I love the groove. I love that kind of hammer down kind of drum beat with just a heavy chunky riff.
I love those.
Yeah, and then Defiance of Fate wasn't even written for Warbringer. I wrote it here in this chair, you know what I mean, in front of my rig, and
Yeah.
I just did it for me. You know, I was like,
Okay.
cool, this is just like a. It started off with like the clean bit, and then it turned into this like monster song. So I demoed it and I sent it over to John, and he was like all about it. So that kind of gave it the green light, and it gave the band the next challenge.
Yeah.
The next, you know, I mean, the band's always had clean guitars, acoustic guitars, you know, on every record to a degree, whether they were intros or whatever, but using it as the verse,
Yeah.
completely new dynamic for us, you know, and we knew going into it, we were like, all right, cool. Can we attempt to do a song like this? You know, you have you know, all the greats have songs like that, you know, Judas Priest, Beyond the Realms of Death, Iron Maiden, Remember Tomorrow. And then this is a little closer to like the Cemetery Gates, you know, Fade to Black vibe. But you know, they've been done on metal records before, so we were like, well, fuck it, you know, it's melodic, it's epic, it's got a different feel, it'll be a really nice contrast to the thrash and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when I listened to this and the album before, was it Vote of the Vanquish, I
Correct.
believe?
Yeah.
This one has, Vote of the Vanquish was really like American thrash. This one has a European vibe to it after playing it quite a few times. You know, was there any influence from that? I mean,
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, with the last one, Vote of the Vanquish, it was very much like a conscious decision to go, okay, the A side for sure, the first 4 or 5 tracks are just going to be crushers. Like we need our balls back, you know what I mean? And this is the band like reforming and reintroducing itself to the world. So let's give them what they want. And then the B side of it was more expansive, more melodic. We kind of dabbled with new stuff. So then on this one, we just weren't afraid to just mix it from the beginning. You know, instead of making it so black and white, side A, side B, we were like, all right, cool, let's write a record and just kind of mold it and find our own sound within every song. So yeah, big time. When it comes to thrash, you know, Keevel's more into the Euro stuff anyway, bands like Creator.
You know, yeah, I could hear that.
Yeah, he champions that more than he would like an Anthrax, definitely.
Gotcha.
And then, like I said, Adam's very much into the Swedish melodic death metal or the extreme death metal from that end of the world. So, you know, everything from early In Flames stuff that's really melodic, or, you know, Entombed and Unleashed, those types of extreme bands. And we all champion the band Bathory, you know, just one guy, Sweden. And that collection, those first 6 records are, to me, are just as important as those first 5 Metallica ones. But for me, just because it's one person starting at one particular point and you see a growth, you know, and that one sound, one group, one man was able to pioneer everything that became black metal later and everything that became like pagan and Viking metal, and just this really, it's really cool music. So we all, you know, fuse our influences, and we're not like really afraid to wear them on our sleeves. So we did that more so with Weapons.
Gotcha. I mean, Weapons is a great record, man. I listened to it I was actually listening to it yesterday when I was doing my exercise, you know, before. It's great. Now, one question, in this world of technology, I mean, technology kind of like changes the game here.
Big time.
Do you guys write like you write and you send files to each other and put songs together, or do you actually get in a room and go, all right, let's get into this vibe of sweatiness, bounce ideas off each other and put songs together? Or do you do both?
Mix of both. What mix in, I'd probably call it like 80-20, and 80 being the first. There was a point in time where I was just doing composition work for a couple of my friends have different companies that do music for visual media, TV, film, ads, video games, stuff like that. So I was their like rock composer. So I got really keen on programming drums, as you know. And then from that, you know, you learn the recording process and using audio and stuff like that. So thankfully for me having that background too, I could demo stuff. Most people in the music world like to use Guitar Pro, and you got to sit there and tab out this stuff, and it's MIDI and it's all that. You know, that's cool too because you have the tabs.
Yeah.
You know, and that's cool for like showing somebody something so they could learn it. But I got into it to where I just record my riffs. I program drums. I'll demo my riffs and I'll send them out. What do you guys think? What do you want to do from here? Or if somebody has like a particular task of stuff, it's like, cool, well, he's going to do all the solos. So, you know, I can demo out stuff and send him all the rhythms and he can write his solos. I do the same thing. He writes his lyrics. I do the same thing. I take his riffs, repurpose them, rearrange them, whatever. So yeah, it's probably about 80-20 where it's the majority of the stuff we can sit together. We can, you know, chop it all up and do a lot of pre-production. So that way it's all prepared before going in to record it. So nobody's wasting time or money. But a few songs on this record, one's on the B side. Adam and I were in the garage hashing it out, you know, iPhone on, voice memo, throw a towel over it, kind of like a ghetto blaster, and just and jam and see what happens. So a few songs on the B side were written that way, where we hash it out.
There's nothing, you know, it's good we have technology, it makes it easier, but there's nothing like getting into a room and
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Down and dirty, yeah.
That vibe. Totally. Now, I mean, we're slowly getting to the end of this episode, and I just have a couple of things.
Hit me.
Before we go. You play drums and guitar. Who would be your like top three? Like, that's top three drummers and top three guitarists. Like, those are the guys that's in my DNA.
Damn. Drum wise. Yeah. It changes as my musical taste changes and grows. So maybe whoever it was at the start isn't who it is today, as far as like on top anyway, who's like of most importance. But just like core people that taught me my basics, I will probably always champion and put them at the top of my list. So starting out and taking drumming seriously, like we go back and it was System of a Down prior to Metallica. So it'd be John Dolmayan of System of a Down who like really got me to play heavier music.
Gotcha.
So learning an album like Toxicity front to back and learning the different fills and the different beats and, you know, the grooves was like quintessential to my playing. And then, of course, Lars, because that sparked me getting into all of those other drummers within that same scene. So definitely John and Lars for like initiating how serious I wanted to take it. But now there's so many drummers. So the third slot could just be the rotating slot of like everybody and their brother that brings in, whether they're metal drummers, fusion drummers. A lot of the gospel chop players are insane. And a lot of those players are playing pop, you know, and I have yet to do that. Who knows if I ever will, but I see all those crazy players who can do every little trick in the book, you know, sitting behind all the biggest pop acts, playing arenas and such like that. So that's really inspiring too, where it's like, you know, here you go, younger guys with like the utmost skill, but they know their time and place, that they can be a part of a larger group and reach a larger audience by being a part of the band and not making it about themselves and how technically great they are.
Yeah. How about guitar players?
I'd probably, when it comes down to the power of the riff, I'm going to give it to Hetfield first and foremost.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That right hand to God, those riffs, those songs. Yeah, they just can't be beat. Like it's top of my book for sure. Second, I'd probably go over to somebody like a David Gilmour.
Oh, good choice.
Man. Like I like the early stuff. I mean, it's cool to see them really, really experiment and really try to find themselves. But once you get to the era of the metal, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, Animal, you know, and The Wall, then you're just like, wow, the playing and the composition and the production and these records are just fucking magical. So yeah, that guy's definitely up there.
Well, those are two good dudes.
Who else? I mean, the third one would probably rotate as well. It just depends on the vibe, but ultimately people who inspire me would be anybody from like Frank Zappa to Tony Iommi.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And anybody who kind of followed just, I don't give a fuck what else is going on. I'm going to do me and stick with it through thick and thin. Doesn't matter who's in my band, what my band's called. You know, I definitely appreciate people of the sort who can, you know, 50 years later, we're still listening to their records from way back when.
Yeah, gotcha. I totally agree with you, dude. Before we close out this whole segment, we're gonna answer a couple of questions and we'll close it out.
Cool.
This one's from Scott Dockendorf, which we know, big DA fan. He always checks out the live stream. He says, "Thanks for doing this, Carlos.
Definitely.
How do you recommend drummers build up their double bass chops? What exercise do you recommend?"
Ooh, good question.
Yeah.
And a frequent one for sure. You got to set goals, but you also just kind of have to jump into it. Like now, when I'm warming up, I'll throw on ankle weights and start off with a song that's like super simple. So like my go-to warm-up song is now Motorhead's Overkill. You know, it's one
good song.
Yeah, it's one beat the entire. I mean, probably my favorite Motorhead record, Filthy Animal, Monster. So that's another one, like quintessential drum influence. And so with that song, it's one beat. It's simple enough to like challenge you for 5 minutes. Can I keep my double bass up, consistently clean, even for 5 minutes? But it's a reasonable pace. It's not like lightning fast. It's not too slow. So I would say challenge yourself with stuff like that and work your way up. If you feel like you just want to go for it, get down and dirty, then, if you're so inclined, you can hit a metronome and just kind of bump up the speed to see where you can really push it. But if you want to, build a stronger foundation, scale it back, get that down, even, clean, tight, and then work your way up. Definitely. I always found that to be the best way, even for me. Like for me to push my BPM, I usually stop, see like what I can hit, scale it back a little bit so I'm comfortable. I mean, for me, I found that to hit the faster tempos, you should be able to hit the slower tempos for a very long time comfortably and not struggling before. Yeah, because in most cases, you don't really need to blast beat 300 BPM for the whole song. You know what I mean? Double bass drumming, it's like here and there. I like it when it's like when it sticks out. If the whole song has double bass, unlike some of the songs I've been jamming recently, just as like a warm up would be, like I said, Motorhead's Overkill. Anthrax's Death Rider is a good one. Accepts Fast as a Shark's another one. Then you get up to your Dyer's Eve and your Angel of Death and your death metal and black metal extreme stuff. But yeah, scale it back, get it clean, build it up.
Good advice, man. And one more, William Lindblom, he goes, "I saw Warbringer at the Parkside in SF last year. It was an amazing show, but very hot and sweaty. How is it playing gigs in clubs that are that hot?" Man,
I enjoy the heat, actually. It's nice when you get a fresher breath air, or if you have a fan, if you're one of those guys. But the heat limbers me up. If I'm too cold, I get stiff. I can't play as comfortably. The heat, I don't mind. You can take off more clothes. You know what I mean? In the room, it's fine. You can strip down to a tank top and your underwear if you need to. But I dig it. I just got to keep hydrated, definitely. But yeah, I don't mind the heat at all. My muscles are just super loose, and I can play comfortably and just let the sweat go. You know what I mean? And we're good. So I fuck with it, definitely.
Gotcha. Carlos, we're wrapping it up. But dude, I just want to let all the viewers know that when I do a live and streaming, I like to do it with musicians that I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of your drumming. I'm a fan of your work. All the others. I'm a fan of Violence. All the stuff I did. Your accomplishments are inspiring, and I hope through this channel it could inspire other people, not only in music but in life. Mm-hmm. You have a great story.
Thank you.
You have a great band, Warbringer, and I hope when these things get lifted, the shelter in place. Yeah. You have a tour coming up in the fall, and I'm going to wish you all the success. But the floor is going to be yours before I close out, so you can let all the viewers know where to find you, all the socials, your website. The floor is yours, bro.
Much appreciated. For me personally, I usually use Instagram the most, and then I'll use the other groups, pages, wherever they may be. But yeah, at Instagram, you could find it. What is it? At Carlos _ Carlos.Cruz _ kind of complicated, but in order to find my own name, I needed to add all the little shits. That's my main one. I use that the most to promote everything else that's happening. But if you come across Warbringer, you can hit warbringermusic.com and find every social from there. From my personal page directly, you can find my solo stuff, my stuff with Chris Poland, and everything else that I've done in there. But yeah, across the board, one of my favorite websites, I still use it, and I have the app on my phone, is Metal Archives, the encyclopedia for heavy metal. You could just deep dive on there. And so anything you come across, any of those bands that we spoke about today, Machine Head, Power Trip, Ex Mortis, Skeletal Remains, I lose count. But yeah, you'll find me one way or another, but definitely hit me up. Say what's up.
And Warbringer is doing a fall tour. You want to talk about that before we close out?
Yeah, sure. Well, we had a bunch of tours scheduled for now, and we'd be on the road now. Even Ted would be on the road now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the circumstances are what they are. But yeah, we rescheduled it to the end of the year. So there is one for North America in the works, and the one that's confirmed and announced will be give or take around Thanksgiving to Christmas in Europe. Fingers crossed that goes through, but if it does, hopefully, and it doesn't get pushed till next year, it's going to be Warbringer with Destruction across Europe, and then a couple other bands will be support. Critics and I believe Damnation Inc., which are pretty much every other band except us is European, so we'll be hitting core thrash Euro markets definitely. Yes. And everybody needs a win right now, so I'm glad that we were able to put out the new record regardless of not playing shows. Music, like I said, is what fucking the reason I wake up every morning. First thing I do is like, where are my headphones? Last thing I do at night, where are my headphones? So definitely, yeah, if we're lucky enough to be back on the road, fantastic. If not, then I will see you next year, but more music always. So definitely.
Right on. Well, Carlos, when we end this, stick around so we can chat
Sure.
for a little bit.
Absolutely.
I just want to let all our viewers know, Carlos Cruz from Warbringer, an amazing musician, person, badass dude. Check out Warbringer's new album, Weapons of Tomorrow. Incredible. And especially the songs that I love. Check them all out and check out all his other solo stuff. And thank you for all the viewers for jumping in on a Saturday afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you're at. And I hope you enjoy this. Comment below and follow Carlos and Warbringer. All right.
Thank you, Ted. Alive and streaming. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody.
Right on.
Love you guys.